his wonderful house in Montevideo. And for those of you who haven't been there, it has ceilings that open up. And birds fly into the house. And then the ceilings close. And the birds fly around the house. And it's a very welcoming experience, not only for the birds, but for the rest of us. But I come here today, not in that capacity. I come here today to express the gratitude and the appreciation of the people of the District of Columbia for Herbert White. And that is, in and of itself, a little story. Because when we meet, and others might come to mind, his family comes to mind, when we got in touch with the fact that this was very, very serious, the thought was raised, we had to have her down to the Council of the District of Columbia in front of the TV camera live to experience, while he was still alive, this great appreciation from our people. And so we began gathering information. I had a very memorable lunch at his house on Fuller, in the district, by the way, that I'm privileged to represent today. And we had a plan. Now, let me digress and say, some of you may know I'm Scottish, so you may not know me at all. Those of you who know me may know that I'm Scottish. And we have a poet by the name of Herbert Barnes. And he wrote a most wonderful poem entitled To a Mouse. And in that poem is to be found the lines, "The best laid schemes o' mice and men gang after gley, and lay us naught but grief and pain for promised joy." So our plan to bring her before the legislature of the District of Columbia and have his life celebrated was not to be the plan. It was ultimately to be realized. And suddenly, this great man was taken from us. And even though this had been serious, those, I speak for myself, being close to this were astounded. And so the resolution that was drafted by his friends and his family and those who loved him was never presented on those occasions, but instead is going to be presented today. And if you don't mind, it's not too long. Do you mind if I just read some of this? Whereas, and there's one part of this, because again, we were looking at a particular date, and it was not to be today. It was not to be today, and therein is a real lesson in and of itself. Whereas Herb White was a longtime fixture of the Washington restaurant scene, running Cafe Don and Adams Morgan, then Herb's Restaurant, first in the Georgetown Hotel and later in the Governor's House Hotel. Whereas Herb White facilitated the founding of a trailblazing organic herb farm in 1984 to supply fresh-grown, all-natural herbs for his own restaurants and to others. Whereas Herb's Restaurant was for decades the social center for much of the art, theater, and literary community of the District of Columbia, whereas Herb White hosted at his own expense the annual Winter Cast Bash to benefit Horizons Theater, Woolly Mammoth Theater, Source Theater, Living Stage, the Studio Theater, Gala Hispanic Theater, and the New Playwrights Theater. Whereas Herb White hosted monthly auctions and benefits for Washington independent writers, Washington Projects for the Arts, the Washington Ballet, Washington Sculpture Center, district curators, the new Art Examiner, and many more. Whereas Herb White provided the space for the founding and the continuation of the DC Art Center in Adams Morgan at a rent of $1 annually. Whereas Herb White provided regular assistance throughout the year to the artistic, literary, and theater communities of the District of Columbia, including devoting the proceeds from his jukebox to artistic and theatrical groups, providing reduced price food and drink to artists, writers, and theater professionals, and providing reduced rent or rent-free living or working space to several promising DC artists. Whereas Herb White served as Assistant Director of Programming for the Smithsonian Associates Program, and whereas in 1989, Herb White won the Mayor's Art Award for providing leadership and support to local artists. Therefore, the Council of the District of Columbia honors Herb White and declares July 3rd, 2007 as Herb White Day.